Hello guys, David Vos here. What a beautiful day it is today. No clouds in the sky. It's nice and warm. Hope you're having a wonderful day, guys. I know a lot of you are like, oh, not another flat earth video. Oh man, if you have ever watched any of these flat earth videos, you should watch this one. Because this is going to completely explain everything. Just to start with, now this is just to start. Somebody just sent me this, a friend of mine. And I guess there is an ISS Live, that's the International Space Station, and they've got a satellite and they've got cameras, I guess, and they're streaming live. That has this live satellite going around, and they take live pictures, and you can literally go there and look at an actual supposedly live shot of the Earth, the world. But they said, look at, that's the North Pole. And it says the ISS is gliding over the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, a region known for whatever it's supposed to say there. But anyway, if you look under the shadows there is Greenland. You can see Greenland. And above, you can see where the North Pole is. There's a massive continent. But they're cloaking it. Here's another one. You can see it a little better. Looks kind of deserty, you know? It's orange or red or something. But it's there. You can see it in all of the different live shots. However, I thought to myself, live? Are you serious? This is live? This doesn't look like the United States. This is no clouds. This is CGI. And look at the lights on the back. This is not even real. So I asked AI, is the ISS live satellite view, is it really live? Or is this some kind of joke? And they said the live video streams from the International Space Station, the ISS, are genuinely live, though there can be slight delay in some periods when a recorded loop is shown instead. There you go. This is absolute proof, guys, that they're not just playing you, but they think you're stupid. And I'll tell you something, if you didn't notice this, maybe you are. Maybe the whole world's stupid. Let's go back and take a little look at this, and you tell me that that's a live shot of the Earth. In this live picture of the fake Earth, there is a cloaked continent at the North Pole. Anyway, that's all I know on that. I'll look into that later. Today, I have something to show you. Take a look at this. Somebody else sent me this, another good friend of mine. And I'm going to show you, it's like a long clip, but you got to go through this and weed through it, because I'm going to explain what the foremost scientists of the world do not understand, because they are fools. But after you watch this video, you too will understand. Take a look.
It's the story of how humanity first figured out the sizes of objects, from the size of the Earth to that of the solar system on up to the universe, and how each measurement unlocks a path to the next one. The very first measurement of the latter is the radius of the Earth, a somewhat classic tale. But to even ask this question presumes that the Earth is a sphere, or at least roughly spherical. So you might wonder how the ancients first deduced the shape of the Earth.
The first really convincing proof came from the moon. And this is the constant theme in the distance ladder. If you want to measure one object, in this case the Earth, you have to use a reference object that is some distance away. See, the thing is that we're stuck on the Earth. Okay, like if we could step away, if you look from many different angles, you could see that it's round. If you only saw it from one angle, it could be a flat disk. Flat disk, if you look at it from a different angle, it would look like an ellipse. But you can actually prove this nice little geometric argument, actually, that if there's a convex body and every single projection is a circle, then it has to be a sphere.
I'm gonna guess that most of you find this pretty intuitive. After all, if every shadow of a given shape is a circle, what could that shape be other than a sphere? But of course, a mathematician always keeps a keen eye out for those strange counterintuitive exceptions.
So I'm going to answer all of the questions, at least the important ones to start with here. And it's just amazing to me that scientists who are so smart are so befuddled with all of their intelligence and logical axioms and superfluous knowledge that they actually think they know something. So they're like, oh, well, we figured this out. Well, why does this amazing prodigal son, obviously one of the greatest scientists that's an upcoming, he's extolled by this video and his wit and his intelligence. And he's like, yeah, I know this. Why? Well, because somebody told him. He's enamored with Einstein and Kepler or whoever. So he believes this information and doesn't do a lot of real in-depth thinking apart from the model. It seems like scientists spend a lot of time memorizing things and understanding the mathematics, but they don't stop and philosophize and think and pray and use intuition and any other means to see if what they're being told is really true. So the premise here is that if you see something that's leaving a shadow, and it always leaves a shadow that's round, then it's got to be a sphere. So you can see the logic here, and it makes sense. We see that that is a sphere right here. And we see that on this plane, which funny enough is actually apparently an infinite plane. Thank you very much. But the ball that's spinning around above the Earth or the infinite plane is leaving a round, what could be a disk. But how do we know if what's making that shadow, a disk shadow, is actually a sphere or a disk? Well, if this was always just a flat disk and it was always parallel with the plane, you see, then it would make a perfectly circular shadow if it was a disk, but it would have to be parallel with the plane. However, if they're assuming that this thing's wobbling around and we see different angles of this round thing, then if it weren't perfectly round, this would become not always spherical. Sometimes it might look more like this, or sometimes it would look like this. Or if it was parallel to the plane, it would be perfectly round like it is. So this is what he's saying. However, what's odd is that the moon, if this is the moon right here, well, the moon is always facing the Earth exactly the same. It never moves. So if the moon was a sphere, we would never know it because we only see one side of the moon. But that's beside the point. Because what he's really talking about is that the Earth, see, they claim, Earth shadows. I guess on the moon, sometimes they see the Earth is between the sun and the moon, and you can see a round arc. So there are other ways I think that they have discovered that the Earth leaves a round arc shadow. But there's something they're not aware of, and that is that if this is let's say that this is the sun, and it's shining on this flat plane, it is going to shine down with rays, and it's going to make a perfectly round, like a spotlight. And out here, there's going to be darkness, and there might be another sun to make a sphere there. And this sun could go around and around and around. Over here in China, now it's over here in America, now over here in China, now it's down here. And you say, well, if this spotlight or this area of light right here is round, that's not what the man is saying, Dave. He's saying that the shadow of the Earth is always round. Well, what they're not understanding here, let me show you. Let's take away all this. Normally, if this was the Earth, right, they don't know that this is all the infinite plane. But if they're just assuming that this area here is the then known world, and this is China and the East, and this is America, right? And so this area is lit up. So if this is the moon, and this is the Earth, and the sun is right here, shining down, if the moon's in the way, there's going to be not a round white ball, but a dark shadow. The Earth's going to be in darkness during the eclipse. And they're going to say, oh, see, it's round. It's always round. Well, only because the moon is round and the sun is shining on it, it's leaving a round shadow. Not because the Earth itself is actually round, but the shadow that the sun is projecting on the Earth is what is apparently round. So that explains that whole thing. Well, let's move on and hear what else he has to say.
If you could look at the Earth and you could always see that it was round, that tells you the Earth is a sphere. NASA can do this, okay, but Aristotle could do this. And he used the moon because he knew about lunar eclipses. Lunar eclipses happen when the moon falls onto the Earth's shadow. And the Earth's shadow, as you can just visibly see, it's always a circular arc. So there's a picture I can show you. This is not my photo, but someone took several images of the moon entering and exiting the lunar eclipse and it composited them together.
Well, notice, you see they take these pictures time lapse, over a long period of time. And they notice that there seems to be a shadow of the Earth every time there's an eclipse. Because the eclipse happens at different intervals. The Earth gets between the moon and the sun, and it leaves that apparent circle. So they say, see, the Earth's got to be a sphere, because the Earth is spinning and rotating, and it's got to be a sphere. But they're not actually seeing the Earth, a globe, spherical Earth, being shadowed on the moon over a period of time, because the sun's behind the Earth, and it's leaving the Earth's shadow on that area that's marked off by the moon at intervals. But that's a kind of a trick picture, because they're trying to make you think that has something to do with eclipses. But that's just the waxing and the waning of the moon. So I don't know if that scientist, renowned scientist, was aware of that, but he should have been. That's not eclipses. That's just the waxing and the waning of the moon. That dark circle is not a shadow of the Earth. It is simply the waxing and the waning of the moon. It does that exact same thing every 6 months. And then the next 6 months, the other side of that sphere will form by the shadows on the moon. But it's not the Earth. That's not an eclipse picture. So they're kind of fooling you there.
First things first, how do we figure out how big the Earth is?
The first person to do this that we know of is Eratosthenes. The way the story goes is that he had read somewhere of this well in this town called Syene, where on one day of the year, the summer solstice, you could look down in the well and you could see the sun reflected in the water underneath. And he said, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't live there, but I have a well in my own town, Alexandria. I'm going to go try the same thing. So he waited until the summer solstice. At noon, he went down and looked at the well, and there was no reflection of the sun. So I think, if you're a regular person at this point, would say, oh, that story is fake news or whatever the film was at the time. And he knew from Aristotle and the others that the Earth was round. The reason what was happening was that the sun was not actually vertical.
Let's think of the sun as far enough away from Earth that all of its rays of light are effectively parallel. At any given moment, if you draw a line from the center of the Earth straight to the sun, it passes through some point on the surface, which must be experiencing this phenomenon, where the sun is directly overhead. But if you were someone in Eratosthenes' time, it would be very difficult to know exactly where this was happening at a given moment. So what makes the summer solstice special is that on that day, the axis of Earth's rotation is tilted directly towards the sun. And as a result, on this day, as the Earth revolves around that axis over 24 hours, there's a consistent line of latitude where all of the locations on this line predictably experience this phenomenon, where at high noon, it's the highest of all high noons, where the sun is overhead. This line has a special name. It's called the Tropic of Cancer, and the town Syene that Eratosthenes had read about sits on this line.
Again, there's just assumptions. They're just assuming the Earth's a globe and this is how it would work. But in fact, this is an infinite plane here. This is an infinite plane, and it doesn't wobble. It's the sun going around the Earth that wobbles, you see. And it's actually a flat plane And it'd be down here in the winter, but the circle would be up here in the summer. And remember, this is a plane. Now remember, we don't know how far the sun is out here, the distance. That's what he's trying to figure out. And he's doing it because he figures there's a different angle one time of the year and another time of the year, the angle. And they're going to get the angle and they're going to be able to figure out with this particular angle how far away the sun or the moon is. Well, let me show you. Look at this. Now, you see, there is someone else has done this very same thing that I've seen in the sky. If you look at the bottom right area down here, this is where the sun is coming from. And therefore, you've got this angle going up this way. And it's going to hit the moon right there, you see? And it looks perfectly natural. That's the angle that the sun is shining, right? However, notice that that's not where the actual moon actually is. The moon is actually up here. And this is the side of the moon that's being lit up. And therefore, the sun should be here. Now, why is that? Go up in the sky when you see the sun and the moon in the sky. And you will see that the angle of the light on the moon makes you think that the sun ought to be here, but it's not here. It's actually here. In reality, you can see the sun down there. And so, if the sun was down here, it would be shining like this. And this would not be the angle, it would be that. But instead, we have this, right? But so we're off by how many degrees there? Like about, I don't know, 25, so much, I don't know, probably 23.5 degrees. Just like with the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, it's 23.5 degrees. So this apparent degree difference that the sun is shining is an optical illusion. The sun's down here, and yet it appears to be shining from this direction. Why? Because this is not really where the sun actually is. It looks like it is, but it's an optical illusion. The sun is up here, and this is why it's making this angle. It is up there. The reason we see it down here is because of what I've been telling you guys. When you look into the distance, your eyes will always bring everything into a focal point. So everything goes towards the horizon. If you look at a mountain in a distance, it may be several miles wide, several miles high. But that mountain in the distance is just a little inch in your distance. Everything goes to a focal point. It converges in the distance. And therefore, when you're seeing the sun overhead, you're looking out not 93 million miles, as they say, probably only a few thousand miles. But you're seeing a few thousand miles away, you're seeing the sun where it isn't really, because of the optical illusion.
Now, Eratosthenes himself was a bit further north than that, in Alexandria. So on that day, at exactly noon, the direction he perceives as straight up, which I'll draw with a pink line here, is not pointed towards the sun. It sits at some angle with all of those rays.
He had what's called a gnomon, which is kind of like an ancient protractor or sundial, a portable sundial, basically. He measured that the sun was actually about 7 degrees off of the vertical.
Critically, because he could also know that at this exact moment, down in Syene, many miles away, the sun was directly overhead, he deduced that this means the arc length along Earth between Alexandria and Syene is about 7 degrees. This, in turn, means the ratio between 7 degrees and the full 360 degrees of a circle must be the same as the ratio of the distance between those two towns and the full circumference of the Earth.
So there you go. This is how they claim they got the distance to the moon. They figured out how far it was to the moon, how far it was to the sun, because they figured out how big around the Earth was. Because they had the 7 degree between these two cities where the light would shine down a well. But of course, the sun's going around and around above an infinite plane, and it's only shining down on our area of the infinite plane in a arc, like a tether ball, around or above us in an arc. And so yeah, it's going to, during the winter, that circle is going to be further south. And so, therefore, it's going to, on different parts of this infinite plane, it's going to shine down onto the infinite plane at a different angle. Okay, but that doesn't mean the Earth is a globe. So the 7% at best is just going to tell you how big the arc is, this tetherball, that on this infinite plane, right? That's not going to tell you how big around the Earth is because it's not a globe. It's going to tell you how big the arc is of the tetherball around the pole. And that's probably pretty accurate. The distance between China and America and Africa and North Pole, South Pole, that area, 12,000 miles by 12,000 miles, is probably pretty accurate. It's just that beyond that, we go out into the infinite plane, and they don't know that. So they're not, with this 7 degrees and then calculating that, they're coming up with false conclusions. Assuming that the Earth is a globe by this is ridiculous. You wouldn't assume that the Earth is a globe. They already proved the Earth is a globe for some other reason that we just explained, but they were wrong. So if the Earth isn't a globe, then how do we explain the 7 degrees difference? Well, just that the sun's going around like a tetherball over our head. And it oscillates between winter and summer. And that's because of the vortice above us. Low, high pressures, negative, positive, all the stuff that we talked about in other videos. The Earth isn't round because of any of these calculations they have shown us. And they have not discovered the circumference of an infinite plane, only the circumference of a field of reference on the infinite plane that we live in. And therefore, if they don't know how big the Earth is, then they certainly can't tell you how far the moon is or the sun, because their very two first calculations were in error. Now, I wanted to do a long video on this today because I have a lot of information that I want to show you. I also wanted to show you some more of his meandering, postulates and all of this long-standing math that we've been using since Aristobulus or whatever. But I think that's sufficient to debunk everything that guy is saying, and therefore everything that science as a whole is saying. I'm not criticizing Sir Isaac Newton, Kepler, Copernicus, or any of the rest. They were doing their best. They weren't involved in some conspiracy. They were trying to understand, with all these angles and this geometry, whether because they didn't originally know for sure if the Earth was round or flat. I mean, they figured this out with these calculations. It's just that once you get some calculation in your head and you don't realize that you're just looking at it wrong, it's like dominoes, and all the other scientists accept it. The problem, though, has never been that. It's only been in the last several hundred years, probably the last 100 years or so, with this group of individuals, with Darwin, Freud, and Marx, and Hegel, and all these Bavarian individuals at the Wilhelm Institute that are pulling this shenanigan over the entire world. And they did it with Aleister Crowley and all these institutions from the occult, from the dark occult. The CIA, Hollywood, NASA, which means deception, and all of this is a great big hoax that even these great scientists, poor Tyson DeGrasse and Yakamoki Woki from Japan, and this guy and all of them, literally fools, literally lost in a great deception. And look, I can't fault them. The whole world's been deceived. But anyway, I'm going to just let that sink in for a little bit. We'll do more on this as we go. We got a lot of other things to cover in coming days. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. It's getting dark here. I've got to get this loaded and get back to the house. And I'm just sitting along the road because I decided to just pull off the road. Somebody sent me this, and I thought, I got to make a video real quick. So yeah, that's about 25 minutes. That'll be enough for today. And we'll get back at you tomorrow. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening. The Lord will surely bless you if you seek him. Pray that you will be found worthy to stand before him in his presence when he arrives. His grace and his peace will always be with you. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.